to the only practice session we are having in Qatar this weekend. Welcome to Qatar FP1 and sprint qualifying. It's going to be very interesting. As we saw the cars on track, the cars ran the hards and the soft tires, and it looks like we are having different cars performing on different tires. Also coming from the McLaren disqualification, how will they manage the race? Like we all knew, this disqualification could cause McLaren tears towards the end of the season, but will they be able to manage it? That depends on how they are able to function all through the remaining weekends of the season. Going into the Qatar GP, I know McLaren would have looked for a way to solve their problem of the plankway or probably minimize damage. Try to come in last two races and make sure they're in decent pace for Lando Norris. Or for me, I think they need to look at this race and see how they can help Lando Norris, probably. And if they're still not calling them to the order and saying, okay, fine, let's use order, they need to look for a way to make sure they are raceable. Except for that, I think if McLaren blows this race, they have blown the championship open, and I don't see them taking it back. This weekend, they need to be very tactical, very, very decisive in their racing. In the first part of the race, long runs on hard tires, we saw them setting good paces, but the Mercedes looks dominant with the Red Bull and the Williams, and it looks as if they know what they are really doing. They are really set up for this race to make sure they make it a very good race. So going forward, we know a lot of people are trying to set up the car to make it more balanced. A lot of complaints from Max Verstappen, especially on the shifts of the transmission, though he had good pace on both the hard tires and the soft tires, but he had a lot of complaints on the shift, which we know he has had for a long time, and also the front end of the car. For Leclerc, he was just complaining about it. Steering is not getting control of the steering of the car. George Russell had complaints. Almost all the drivers had complaints. Most of the drivers were just kidding off because the track in Qatar requires much of the front end of the car. You just throw it in, especially on the corners. But we saw this driver suffering all through that. And looking at it, it's going to be a very tough weekend for them in Qatar. And also we saw Andre Newey taking his role as the team principal of Aston Martin for the first time in the season. And I'm like, him and Nandikowa didn't go on well. Chris Horner's name came up. Andre Newey became the team principal. What a role he is going to get at 68 years old. You know, leaving Red Bull after 20 years looks like, what will he do? Yeah, he's going back to engineering, design, and now being a team principal. I'm sure he didn't expect himself to be in this role as a team principal. Now coming in as a team principal for Aston Martin is going to be a very big one. Will they change him? Will they bring Christian Horner in next year? We don't know yet, but I think as a partner, a shareholder, and as a team principal with so much experience in engineering, CFDs and everything, I think his role is looking like a very strong role in Aston Martin, and I think he has a lot to prove in Aston Martin. So let's see how he does that. So looking at the timesheets, the long runs, we saw the McLarens and the Red Bull and Ferrari look pacey, but on the fast tires, we saw the McLarens, Oscar Piastri coming back, peeping his teammate. We saw Alonso, we saw Stroll, and Max Verstappen. Others were looking a little bit back. Not that they are looking a little bit back. I think they're not setting their right pace. I think one of the things McLaren can do is, after the sprint qualifying, we go into the sprint race, then qualifying, then race. So if they can win the sprint qualifying, get on post, win the sprint race, they can adjust the car and come back, maybe second or third in the main race. In the sprint, you can still fumble the car and make it low, do whatever you have to do to win, because the skid plate will not go 57 laps. That's over 1 hour. Just do like 30 minutes. So let it do that and come into the main race and adjust. That's what they need to do. Winning the sprint race gives them some point buffer. Those little points are important. So those point buffer will take them a long way this season. Then coming into the main race, lose few points. Come into the last race of the season, now do or die. That is the only way. And if they can get that out this race without disqualification, that is a plus for them. And I think they seriously need it to make a good deal of this season. So let's see how they're able to do that. But it's going to be very interesting to see what the qualifying looks like this evening. Yeah, I'll catch you guys there. What a sprint qualifying race it was, and we saw the Ferrari outperform themselves. Lewis Hamilton out again in SQ1, and going into the sprint qualifying, Lewis Hamilton was not happy with what happened in the FP1. He had to change the rear wings of the car to a high downforce rear wings, while his teammate Charles Leclerc stayed on the low downforce rear wing, and because he was not happy with it, the car was not drivable for him. Now the car went from bad to worse. No impeding, nothing, pure pace, he was out in Q1. Ferrari is going from bad to worse. I think the Sauber and the Haas outperformed Ferrari in that SQ1, which shows that something is cooking and something is boiling and is getting burnt in Ferrari. They are not looking like a team that has a focus, and that is bad enough. So the SQ1, we had 12 minutes on the medium, and we had Verstappen leading the charge, Alonso, Piastri, Hulkenberg, and Norris. Now in the drop zone, we have Stroll 16, Lawson 17, Lewis Hamilton 18, Gasly 19, Colapinto 20, 13 for Leclerc. You can see how bad it was for Ferrari. Hulkenberg 4th. How bad that was. Going into SQ2, the tragedy for Ferrari still keeps boiling, and we can see that it looks crazy. Norris came up on top, Piastri 2nd, Verstappen, Russell, Tsunoda in SQ2, and Aja was out because he had his lap time deleted and Kimi Antonelli substituted him. Bierman, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, and Esteban Ocon. Now in SQ3, this is the first time Yuki Tsunoda is outperforming or out-qualifying Max Verstappen this season, and it is in the sprint. Tsunoda out-qualified Verstappen for the first time in that same car. Verstappen complained all through that the car is sleeping, the car is jumping up and down, bouncing, and I could think, what is happening with this car? Is it that they've lowered the car too much because they wanted to get the lap time like I think the McLaren would do? The McLaren could preserve their tire very well. George Russell did a good job, but we saw Piastri coming on top. Russell, Norris, Alonso, Tsunoda in 5th. Verstappen 6th, Antonelli, Sainz, Leclerc, and Albon in 10th. It's going to be a very interesting sprint race tomorrow, and I want to see what really happens in the sprint race, how these guys can turn their woes into wins. It's going to be very interesting. Catch you guys in the sprint race tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. Yeah, bye guys.